Good afternoon, Camille. A case that is almost 6 years in the making. Jury selection got underway at about 8:30 with Judge Kurt Engelhardt, federal Judge Kurt Engelhardt, leading the way. Right now what's happening is defense attorneys and prosecutors are in the judges' chambers meeting individually with all of these potential jurors, trying to screen them and seat the best 12 people. And like I said, it's been a long time getting here. NOPD Detective Arthur Kaufman walked into federal court with very little to say. Mr. Kaufman, how do you feel?
No comment, please.
Anything to say at all?
No.
Do you have a comment, Mr. London?
No.
The trial is a long time coming, almost 6 years in the making. It all started on September 4th, 2005, after Hurricane Katrina hit the area. This is exclusive video of what happened on the bridge. Officers say they responded to a distress call and that people opened fire on them. But federal prosecutors say the cops were out of control and fired on unarmed civilians. 6 people were shot, 2 killed. By March of 2006, former Orleans Parish District Attorney Eddie Jordan launched an investigation into what happened on the bridge. December 28, 2006, 7 police officers were indicted in Orleans Parish for murder and attempted murder charges. Days later in January, the officers, now known as the Danziger 7, turned themselves into authorities. The officers were allowed to post bond and, in some cases, go back to work. In the summer of 2008, the state charges were dropped against all officers, clearing them of any wrongdoing. But by September of that year, the feds launched their own probe. They wanted to know what happened on this bridge. Then the guilty pleas started rolling in. On February 24th, 2010, Mike Lohman, an NOPD detective, admitted to covering up what happened on the bridge. Lohman was not on the bridge when the incident happened, but was the first investigator at the scene. He admitted to planting a gun and making up witnesses. Days later, on March 11th, 2010, another NOPD detective, Jeffrey Learman, also pleaded guilty to covering up the crime. 1 month later, in April 2010, 2 more officers rolled over, Michael Hunter and Robert Barrios. Both were on the bridge and admitted to playing a role in what happened. Then in May, NOPD officer Ignatius Hills, also on the bridge, pleaded guilty to obstructing justice. In June of last year, 6 NOPD officers were indicted on numerous federal charges. Attorney General Eric Holder announced the indictments himself. 5 of those officers are now on trial. If convicted, some could spend the rest of their lives in jail. Now, we should point out that all 5 of those officers are in the courtroom right now. They're basically just sitting there while their attorneys are in the judge's chamber. Kurt Engelhardt, the judge here, had said he'd like to seat a jury in 2 days, but we're hearing now that jury selection could roll into Friday, which would be a 3rd day, but he's at least confident a jury will be seated by the weekend. Camille?
Travers, anybody else there of note? Anybody else that you can tell us who's there even witnessing what's happening in the courtroom?
Well, you know, a strange thing, none of the victims' families are here. We hear that they will be here once the real trial starts, once they get past jury selection. But members of the families of all of the officers involved, their wives, their fathers, in some cases their brothers and sisters, are all there in the courtroom right now.
All right, Travers, we will check in with you a little bit later. Please stand by for us, and thanks for that.